Then I'd like to go ahead and call this meeting to order and welcome you all to the Coeur d'Alene School District 271 regular board meeting of August 14th, 2023. Would everyone please rise and together join in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Terrific, and welcome back. It feels like a welcome back after July, and it's only been a month, and yet with summer. Welcome back, everyone. Would like to go ahead and introduce our participants for this evening. Starting at my far right is Miss Marianne Southwick, our clerk of the board, Dr. Sean Hawker, our superintendent, Miss Leslie Bierke, board member, Miss Heather Tenbrink, board member, Miss Allie Anderton, board member, and I'm Rebecca Smith, chair of the board. Trustee Casey Morris-Rowe is not able to join us this evening. Public comment on district-related items is scheduled near the start of the regular meeting. Please sign in at the sheet at the back doors. Comments may also be submitted to the board via email at trustees@cdaschools.org or in writing through the clerk. Thank you. For our agenda tonight, is there a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we'll proceed with our agenda tonight. First up this evening, we have a very special recognition that we as a district and a community would like to do, and so want to recognize one of our fellow teachers that passed away this summer, so Mr. Clark Campbell, and I'd like to invite his wife and daughter actually up here to the front, if that's all right. We're so glad you're here. Yeah. All right. Welcome. Shake your hand. I'm going to come around to the other side though. All right. We've got this beautiful picture and of Mr. Campbell and with some great community leaders and trustees and stuff, and so we'd like to present that to you. All right, and there's a bag there, and then I'm going to read a few things. And I didn't get a chance to know your dad and your husband personally, but all that I've heard and what I'm about to read just continually speaks to what a great man he was and is and has been for 33 years in our district. And so on behalf of my fellow trustees, Superintendent Hawker, and our entire district of parents, students, and staff, I'd like to take a few minutes to recognize Mr. Clark Campbell, beloved elementary physical ed teacher who taught across our district for 33 years. Clark tragically passed away in July, and he most recently taught at Dalton and Hayden Meadows Elementary Schools. It is an honor to have you, Sherry, and are you Kaylee or Kendra? So Kaylee. And to have both of you here this evening just to take a moment to recognize him. Mr. Clark inspired whole generations of kids over his long career. He was a passionate educator and modeled lifetime fitness and a love of the outdoors for the students he taught and the people he worked alongside. He brought a level of enthusiasm and commitment to ensuring his students challenged themselves and succeeded, instilling in them the belief that they could do anything they put their hearts and minds to. This approach to teaching earned Clark the respect and the affection of students, staff, and community members alike. As a district, we remember his kindness, his infectious smile, and his stories, and we will continue to model his enthusiasm for teaching and his dedication to our community's young people. This community is better off having known him. He was a kind soul, and he will be deeply missed. Clark was the district's Teacher of the Month in February 2019, and this is just our remembrance of him, and we just appreciate you and your family and Mr. Clark's dedication to this entire district. Thank you both for being here. Can I get that? Yeah.
My other daughter.
You may, and I underlined that he was Teacher of the Month, so. Thank you for being here. So appreciate it. Thank you both. Nice to meet you too. We have some tremendous career educators in our community, and I'm so thankful for them. We want to recognize another one of our educators, and Mrs. Tembrink is going to present a congratulations.
We want to wish Shauna Marshall congratulations. She's a 5th grade teacher at Sorensen Magnet School, and she's been named Idaho's 2023 History of the Year, which is an award presented annually by the Gilder Lehrman Institute of American History. Inaugurated in 2004, the History Teacher of the Year Award highlights the crucial importance of history education by honoring exceptional American history teachers from elementary school through high school. The award honors one K-12 teacher from each state and territory. Knowledgeable and impassioned teachers bring our country's history to life for students, allowing them to understand that engaging with history is about more than a series of facts, says James G. Basker, the president of the Gilder Lehrman Institute. Shauna will receive a $100,000 honorarium, a core archive of American history books, and will become one of 53 finalists for the 2023 National History Teacher of the Year. Congratulations, Shauna, on this well-deserved honor, and we're glad to have you in our district.
Mrs. Marshall's taught all 3 of my kids, and she's as tremendous as you just read. So, yeah, it's been a real gift to get her, to have her impact my kids. So, next up, we are going to move into our public comment portion of our meeting tonight, and we want to remind the public that while this is a meeting of the Board of Trustees that takes place in public, it's not a meeting with the public. It's a meeting of the board to conduct our district business. The board does allow a public comment period for district-related items, which is limited to no more than 45 minutes, unless a majority of the board votes to extend our time frame. Those wishing to address the board during this public comment period are limited to 1 comment, not to exceed 3 minutes. The designated time, I'd like to welcome you over here to the podium. Hopefully it's on. If not, there's a button. We'll help you out. Please state your name and your city of residence. Please keep in mind that board members will not respond to public comment. If you have handouts for the board, you may give them to our clerk, who will disseminate them on your behalf. If we or I determine that an individual statement is too lengthy, personally directed, abusive, or repetitive, may terminate that speaker's privilege to address the board. If you have additional comments that you would like presented to the board or to any of our additional trustee who's not here, you may provide those comments in writing to the clerk or at our email. All right, we have a few community members, and so I'd like to welcome up this evening Diana Sheridan. Okay, thank you. Thank you, and thank you for being here. Nancy Spencer? Okay, thank you.
How's that? Is that better? Good evening, board members, Dr. Hawker, and staff. My name is Nancy Spencer, and I live in Hayden, Idaho. First of all, I would like to thank Mike Nelson and Heather Summers for their quick responses to my emails, providing me with requested information, data, and updates. Additionally, I want to thank Heather for her detailed PowerPoint presentation at the last board meeting with all of the assessment data. It's obvious that it required a great deal of time, effort, hard work, and energy to compile it. From Heather's PowerPoint and her the June 29th board memo data, I have organized and done a data compilation to assist me in understanding better where we as a district are with our assessments. And I've given a handout to the board members as well as to Mike and Heather and Dr. Hawker. So on the first one, I'd like you to take a look at it. I had a little difficult time understanding all the stuff because the data, there was so much at the last board meeting. So I put together a spreadsheet which basically tracks the ISAT scores by grade level and then district-wide since the inception of 2015 when they first started recording the scores. And looking at it, it was kind of troubling to see that a lot of the scores have not improved or increased. You'll see a slight increase and reduction, but for the most part, if you look at 2015, the numbers there, and then look at 2023, you'll see that we've actually lost ground for the most part. I know in 2020 was COVID, and so that was a off year, and then there was recovery with that. But in the last 3 years, it looks like we haven't really done a whole lot of improvement. And I made a little note on your PowerPoint slide, or the slide there, so you can read about. It just seems like the scores have stayed the same or declined with one exception. And likewise in math, I compiled that as well, and it's a similar thing. In 2021, ISAT math tests were administered after the pandemic ended and normal classroom attendance returned. Since the 2021 results, the scores have not significantly changed, with 5 grades staying the same or lower and 2 improving. So I didn't do science because I didn't want to go too much into depth with 3 minutes, so I just did the ELA and the math. So then I thought, well, I'll dig a little deeper into the stuff that Heather had presented, because the district does use the IRI, iStation, and the FastBridge data to as indicators that she mentioned in the PowerPoint that show where we are as far as on track with our students' learning throughout the years, so that when we have the ISAT towards the end of the year, we're not caught off guard. And I made a little notation with what the ISATs were for ELA for the last 3 years for ELA, as well as the last 3 years for math. I didn't have any data for iReady for math for the 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders, so I wasn't able to put that in there. But it did seem like there was a disconnect in terms of predictability.
And Ms. Spencer, I'll need you to wrap it up. That's
I do?
3
Okay.
minutes.
All right, so I did that. Then on the third slide, the third PowerPoint one, is I looked around the area to see how other schools were doing, and I noticed that the charter schools seem to have started lower and continue to improve year over year over year. So I'm not just about saying, oh, look, we haven't done well, the district is doing poorly, et cetera. What I want is solutions, and that's in my the next presentation that I gave you. And the solutions
And
I
we'll
was
be happy to read that if you want to make your final statement.
Okay, so I'm just looking at the solutions that we have, I think, in district, as well as there's an agenda item 9A. I have a paper I handed out to you with some data on that.
Okay.
And I'm recommending that you don't approve that just based on the funds that it costs, as well as the data from other schools that have used it and what we have as a local resource.
Great. Thank
Okay?
you.
All right,
Thanks.
thank you.
Mr. Bill Green?
Good afternoon to you all again. Thanks. I always have to say thank you in the beginning and the end for all your work. And I sent you all an email this morning, which I suppose you saw, and I'm not going to read it or anything. I'm sure you've already read it. And it just thinking about the last board meeting when I heard that there were maybe 80-some students who may be, if I got the number right, entering into 9th grade with some troubles in math or questions about their competence or their so far achievement, and ways, and I think you guys developed some ideas too about what to help them, and you have some ideas about math concepts I think are coming up on the board today. But my idea was to include an opportunity for kids who are in a regularly sequenced class to be separated out, have that class, but also have another class that could be an elective, and maybe cut down to 8 or 10 students, and have teachers that are going to help them specifically to the needs that they are experiencing for that particular class. And maybe even some tutoring. And also, even farther down the line, it's a possibility, maybe a home visit. Because sometimes one little tweak in the home process can make a big difference in how kids are achieving in school. And I'm not sure if that's ever been done in a district or not, but to go into the home and help parents understand better how what they're doing, what the kids are doing, could change even a little bit to help make a big difference in how they're doing in math. So I taught in a boys boarding school in California for a while, and we had troubles with math, and there was track systems. And I'm not suggesting that specifically, but this is the idea of recognizing that there are some kids, if they got some extra help, which could be tutoring or some teachers in a smaller class, that parallels what they're already taking, but yet addresses the issues they're having in that particular class. But over the course of time, they may be able to get back up to speed and be integrated into that class with a lot more success. And I think that maybe you already, and I also put in my email, and I'm sure that the district people have thought about this a lot and probably have a lot of ideas, more than I do, and have already thinking about what to do. This is just something I just wanted to throw out for your consideration and discussion to focus on kids that are struggling and then give them a chance to have some extra help as a group, but a smaller group, and then maybe individual tutoring. And I think that there's, I guess there may be some extra money, not extra money, but what's ever extra in money. But remediation money is probably available to help kids that are struggling with anything to do with school. So I would just think this would be a goal to help kids catch up on their competency. And I think that just to think about it anyway is an idea. I'm just offering that up as a possibility. And thank you again for all your work and your helping all the families and the students and the teachers in 271 and for giving us all a chance to make comments. So thanks again. God bless you guys.
Thanks, Mr. Green. We can clap. Thank you both for giving comment. I know math is heavy on all of our hearts, so, and our thoughts, and we'll revisit that later on in our meeting. All right. I believe next up we have superintendent comments. Is that correct?
Yes, Chair Smith and
Yeah.
trustees, just an update real quick. Just want to remind everybody that over the summer, we had a resignation from our K-Tech director, and that's our program that's jointly operating between us and Post Falls and Lakeland. And it was a rather late departure as well, so we were really nervous, I guess, to say the least, since I also sit on that board, as to how we might be able to fill that position. But wanted to announce that we were able to find a great candidate in Mr. Bill White, and you may recognize that name. He used to be our athletic director at Coeur d'Alene High School. So now we have another challenge locally in our district to fill that position. But he has assumed the position as the K-Tech director already, and he will also help us transition with our athletic director responsibilities once we have identified that next person. But just wanted you to all be aware that Kobe is no longer the K-Tech director. He has transitioned to North Idaho College, and Bill White will be the new K-Tech director.
Great.
And that's all I have.
Terrific. Thank you. All right. We have our consent agenda for this evening. And so is there a motion to accept tonight's consent agenda?
I would like to have a little bit more discussion on items 5J and L and S, if possible.
5J, L, and S? Great. All right. Let's go ahead and we can pull those out. Is there any additional items that we'd like to discuss? All right, let's go ahead and look at 5J then, which is the bus bid summary. Do you have questions, Trustee Tenbrook? Oh, not Tenbrook, sorry. Anderton C. We're coming back.
Is she talking? I guess my question there is, I know down farther in our consent agenda, we're looking at the disposal of the surplus buses, and they would be going to public auction. And I'm wondering why we wouldn't be sending the other buses to public auction for the opportunity to maybe procure some greater, just a greater value out of those rather than just using them for trade.
Yeah.
And since the trade values are so low.
Couple reasons on that. I'm a little bit afraid of saturating that market of the bus bid market if we put all of those buses on that. The buses we've been getting, the bids we've been getting from Western Mountain have been around that $2,000 range. So I would recommend that we accept the bid of around that $2,000 range for those. And then the ones that were lower than that were the ones we recommended to kind of test the market again on the surplus and see where we go with that. But if we put all of those on there, I'm a little afraid of saturating that market of kind of flooding all of those buses and then not getting bids on the buses because we have so many on that market at that point.
Okay.
And then I think we would reassess that in future disposals, and if we start to get more, I think we might transition more to that in the future.
Okay. Thank you.
Joe, when we auction those buses off, are we basically essentially just auctioning them off for parts? Do people actually take them and
People do
further
buy
use
them. I mean,
them?
you see these, they call them the schoolies on the road. And so, there is some market for those buses, and people strip them and rebuild them. And,
Okay.
sometimes they have to redo the engines on them. And, the buses that we are disposing on have a lot of miles on them and have a lot of wear and tear. So
Is
they do
there a
need
chance we'll
a good
get
bit of work.
higher bids If
There is a
it's going
chance.
to
I mean,
auction?
the when we get the appraisal from Western Mountain, that will essentially set the minimum bid. That's the reserve on that auction. So if we don't get that minimum bid, then we would have to reassess and figure out what we're going to do for disposal of them. But yeah, there is a chance we could get more for that, and I think it's time to test that market and see what we can get for those.
Great, thanks. Trustee Anderton, questions on L? And Jeff, I bet this comes back to you. Don't leave.
Stay there. I'm curious with the expense on pizza that we spend yearly overall, and curious as to why we're offering pizza every single day of the week, and if we could cut that back to like 1 day a week and cut cost and waste at the same time.
Pizza's pretty popular with the students. I think it's one thing that they do like. I do hear a lot of feedback that they don't like the whole grain crusts on them. And it's kind of been the standard that we've offered that every day, and it tends to be a fairly popular choice for the students. And so we assess on how much pizza is purchased, and so we adjust the orders accordingly based off of the numbers of, per school on how much is being bought on a weekly basis.
I guess the feedback that I've heard a lot through SAG students and my own kids and my kids' friends and other students that I've known throughout the district is that they really don't eat the pizza. They'll pull the toppings off and throw the rest away because it tastes like cardboard. And so it seems like kind of a waste to me that we would continue to have that ongoing cost.
The
when
whole
we could
grain
offer
crust is
more.
what is required by the USDA to meet the guidelines of the standards for, what we have to have in the crust of that whole grain. And that, that's a little bit of the rub. I know most of those kids, when they go to one of those pizza vendors, they would probably not order the whole grain crust. And, that's a rare option. I think that people choose from that, but we are required to do that.
I understand the requirement there.
I mean, we can dig into that a little bit. Like I said, we order the pizzas based on the quantities that we sell, and that's what we assess, and that's when we place those orders for how many pizzas we order on a day is based off of the, historical weekly sale of the pizzas per school.
Okay.
And that's not money like out of our general operating fund. That's part of the lunch fund, which is an entirely separate.
Right, that's covered by the revenue that comes in from the lunch fund.
So
yes,
the money for that pizza is covered by revenue.
Correct.
That people or the USDA?
yes.
Give us-
There's reimbursements for that as well.
Yes,
So
give
that,
us
that counts because
for
it meets
lunch.
the criteria. So
Okay.
when we submit our lunch counts, we get the reimbursements from the federal government for that.
Okay.
Yes.
I guess just considering the many requests that I've heard from students wanting more produce, more salad options, things like that, I would think that that would be another place that we could use that money
Yeah.
and better purpose those funds.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if you're all aware, but we are hiring for a new Director of Nutrition Services, Ed Ducar, who's been with us for 20-some years, has announced his retirement. And so we are currently interviewing for that position right now. And I think that is one thing that, under the new candidate that I will spend some time with, like what can we do within the guidelines to improve? Like we've heard that, from the STAG students, we've taken that feedback. But with a new director coming in, we need to kind of revisit that feedback, and hopefully we can bring in some fresh ideas and things with a new director under that program. And so, while change can sometimes be hard, change can sometimes be good too, because we can look at different ideas and take things in a different direction.
Thank you.
This is a contract we're approving per pizza, not an overall amount, right?
Correct. We
So
are approving the price per pizza that we purchased.
if we
that
had
at.
changes in our lunches that led to less pizza being bought, there's nothing that ties us to
Correct. It
buying
would still be that
more
same
than we
rate
need.
that, if we only order 18 pizzas versus 22 pizzas for a certain school, it would be that's the rate that you're approving is the rate of what we pay for the pizzas that we buy.
Just a little side note. So when I taught school, and it was K-5 school, there was tons of waste. I mean, it's kind of a general thing that a lot of kids don't like school lunches. So maybe in looking for a new director, that would be something good to focus on so that we're giving quality food but not wasting a ton of food.
Yep.
I mean, there's
I
nothing
agree. I
worse
think we
than the
need to-
kids just chucking in the, filling off toppings and stuff. And saving money in the process if we can. That's always a good thing.
I
So.
think that's a good process with the new person coming in. Let's observe, let's obsess, and see what we can do to make some changes.
Great, thanks. Let's look at item S then. Does that, the
That was
nutrition
tied in
Tied
with
into
the-
it?
yeah.
Okay, all right, terrific, thank you, Jeff.
Thanks.
Good, any other additional questions on anything on the consent agenda? Great. Is there a motion then to approve the consent agenda as presented, or a different motion?
I'll move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. All right, consent agenda is approved then. Additional information there. There's 3 items. Is there any questions on contracted services, procedure 3010P, or annual policy or procedure updates? Any questions on any of those? They're provided there for information.
The questions, just for anybody that's interested, I did ask a bunch of questions, and they're in the question and answer portion of our packet, so. And I did ask some regarding them, they were answered.
Okay, terrific. Great.
I actually have a question about 3010P. I noticed that in our, the district may give priority to the following. It doesn't include kids of our employees anymore? It did in the redlined version, but not in the rewritten version.
Dr. Hawker, or
Address that, Mike. That's an attorney update.
Sure. Chair Smith, Superintendent Hawker, members of the board, that red line was recommended removed from our legal counsel. There are no legal protections within the statute that allows us to do something like that. So that was her recommendation.
Okay.
all right. All right, then those items are presented there for information. We're gonna go on to then second reading of, we have our new course, Explorations of Classical Literature. There was a lot of, couple questions on that and 2 public comments. Any additional questions or comments? Or a
Actually,
motion?
I do. It's probably Mike, I'm probably going to have to ask. On the fairy tale course, I did get a book list from Kennedy. I forgot her last name, sorry. Schaber, from Miss Schaber. And I looked through the books. They seem fine. I do have a concern, and I should have followed up before, and I'm sorry I didn't, about the Disney Plus. In what capacity and what limitations are we going to be using the Disney Plus? Some of the older content seems like it would probably pair nicely with her books, but the newer content I do have some concerns about. So I was wondering if you have that information, or maybe she needs to give me that information. So that's a little concern. I think her book selections are fine.
Trustee Bierke, I do not have that information.
Okay.
However, looking at her response and the response that we provided to you, I have no belief that she would just be looking at the entire Disney Plus catalog to be able to support the goals of that course.
Okay.
Simply references back to the fables and stories that we had selected and shared with you.
Okay,
However,
so
I cannot-
they would pair with the book list that you both had
That's
sent
my
to me.
inference in reading her response.
Okay.
However, if you would like a detailed response from Mrs. Schaber, I can certainly
Sure,
reach
it doesn't
out
have
and
to
do
be
that.
long, but just maybe just what her parameters are. Would be a
Understood.
little bit better about knowing that.
Sure.
And I apologize that I did not follow up with that question.
We'll be glad to follow up with you.
Thank you.
I just wanted to address a little bit, some of the comments referred to why we're adding another elective. And you addressed that in your questions in the board packet. But we modified Lake City's graduation requirements to require more electives in core subjects. And so I think this is a response by our teachers to offer more electives in our core subjects. So I think that's probably the impetus for this.
Terrific. Trustee Bierke, do you feel like without that information about Disney, are you able to make a decision on this course tonight or not?
I kind of have to make the decision because the class is already set.
Right, so there is students planning to, if this is.
They already, do
Okay.
they have students already enrolled? Oops, sorry. Do they have students enrolled for our, I think kids going
the
back
fall.
in the next couple of weeks? Three more weeks?
Trustee Bierke, our typical plan is to have a course code established should the board enact the course. If the course is not enacted this evening, those course requests would be canceled, and students would be asked to choose a different elective.
Okay, so I'm wondering too, and I kind of thought about this is a little bit, and I don't know if we do this, but I think it's a good idea with any new course I'm fine with approving it if we can review it towards the end of next year to see that it's accomplishing the goals it's set out to do, instead of just a free-for-all approval for, years to come. Can we do that? Is that something we could do? Approve it
We could-
now,
we could
and then
approve it on
revisit it, and if it's going great, then we'll
If that is a
continue
parameter
on.
that works for you as a board, certainly that is something that you can add to your motion.
Okay, perfect.
Great.
I'd like to do that.
Okay.
Also, this is not a required class. Students still have to take English 9, 10, 11, 12. Those are the required English classes.
Correct. This
Right.
would not substitute for a required course. So this
Okay.
would be an elective at Lake City High School, one of the 16 credits that they would need to be able to graduate from the school.
Okay, so if a parent had concerns with this course, they can simply contact a counselor and ask for a different elective.
Absolutely. So there are a variety of different elective courses offered. This is one of those would be available in that catalog.
Okay, thank you.
Terrific. And then no matter what we do then, it's always helpful if one of us gets like a course list or something for that. Would you forward me that? I mean,
I will. I do
that's,
have
that, you could just forward it to the rest of us or whatever, to all of us. That'd be terrific. Great. So is there a motion then regarding this new elective course?
I'm just going to make it up.
Yeah, okay. No, go ahead.
I'd like to motion that we approve the exploration of classical literature, societal influences of fairy tale and folklore for the upcoming school year, and revisit for progress towards the end of next year, but maybe earlier than July.
Trustee Bierkeek, may I ask what progress appears like
Just
to
to
you?
see how the enrollment is, to see how the students are, just kind of a nice overview, making sure that it is suiting our kids' needs and accomplishing the goals that Ms.
Schaber.
Schaber set out.
Yes, ma'am. Thank
She
you.
did say that she had taught that in another district and that it was well received, and that was
Accurate.
nice to hear that as well.
Great. Ms. Southwick, did you capture that motion?
Sorry, that was very
then?
long.
So to approve the new course and for the upcoming school year and revisit for progress before July 2024 or prior to July
Sure.
2024.
Terrific. Is there a second?
I can second.
All right. Any further discussion on that? All right. All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
I'm going to abstain on this one without the information on the Disney Plus.
Okay. Terrific. So that's 3-4 and then one abstention. Thank you. All right. Great. Let's go ahead. And just as a reminder, any whispering out there, it just gets really distracting. All right. So especially from the back, if there's whispering in the crowd and stuff, I have a hard time focusing because I want to pay attention to everything. So that would be great. Let's go on then. Lots of interest then this evening on our math concepts. Were any additional questions on our math concepts? And we'll just start with one and then we can do all three together if we need to. Any questions, comments, or where's people kind of at?
Well, actually, Trent and I have been emailing back and forth. I don't know if you want to share. I mean, some of it is in the board packet. I do have concerns, but again, I would feel okay going forward with perhaps revisiting at the end of next year to see if perhaps we have less students than we have in the incoming year, how the kids do in these new concept classes, making sure they're meeting the needs of the kids that are in those classes. And sometimes we don't know till we know.
I appreciate, first of all, Chair Smith and trustees, Dr. Hawker and Marianne Southwick. The data is concerning. Let's not sugarcoat that in any way, shape, or form. I mean, we do think that we'd like to see fewer students enrolled in those courses. That would definitely be a situation that we want to work towards. And so in light of that, the math concept classes, and I mentioned it in the board notes as well, it's really more of a short-term intervention rather than a long-term solution. And really what we want to do is we want to make sure that in a lot of ways, and I mentioned in the board notes, the strategy of, we've got to take a look at our sequence K-8. Why do we have students that are entering high school not prepared to take and be successful in Math 1? We have to take a look at why we have students that aren't prepared to be successful in Math 2. What's the rationale? What is the reason for that? But we also know that we don't want to place students into classes where they're not going to be successful as well. So in our short-term solution, it really is the idea, the mindset is, let's take these students and at least put them in a situation where they have the mobility, the possibility to be able to move out of that remedial track into the standard track in the short term. In the long term, definitely we want to have all those students be successful into those Math 1, Math 2, Math 3 courses, with the understanding, we're always going to have some students that are going to struggle, but we have the supports and the interventions in place so that they can be successful within that class. And, there's so many different ways to attack, those issues, those challenges. And, our teachers are incredible. They do a great job. We need to come alongside and support them even more, because I know math is under the spotlight, isn't it? And so as a result of that, the last thing I want is for our teachers to be feeling like, they're attacked. I don't want them to be attacked. What I want them is to be free and to be courageous, and let's move forward and let's really get the job done, and let's support them in every way that we can. And I really think we can get there. I really do. I wouldn't have put together even that idea, that proposal, or we wouldn't have for that. And I'm comfortable with the 1 year. I think that's fair. That is fair. Let's take a look. Let's evaluate. Let's see our progress. And certainly none of us want to continue to go down a road that's not successful. We want to do what's going to make our students most successful. And so I don't know if that addresses, Trustee Bierke, what you wanted me to address, but that we certainly do care deeply about this, and we recognize it, that we want our students to do better in this particular situation.
And thanks for all the information. I'm not sure why any teachers would feel attacked. We want to support them and support our students, and we want our students to be successful. So these questions are not in any way an attack on their ability. It's just the numbers were definitely more than I was anticipating.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that, and I appreciate you saying that. And we don't want our teachers to feel that as well. And I'm not saying that it's coming from you as a board. It's just sometimes when you're in the paper and your scores are out there, it's the piece that just says, wow, it can be almost overwhelming. And so I would just encourage you in all of your interactions with our math instructors as well, just that encouragement and that support, that'll mean a lot. It really will mean a lot to them. So.
Terrific. Thanks. Any additional questions? Or we've asked a lot. There's a lot in our packet that all of us have asked over the last couple months. Is there a motion then tonight? I'm hearing maybe a 1-year trial, essentially. Yes. And I know that reflects potentially what Trustee Morris Rowe, he's unable to be here, but sent just some encouragement that if he was here, that would be how he would lean as far as us doing that.
I recognize the test scores coming in, the timing of that makes this difficult, but it would sure be nice to deal with this before next July again. So, okay.
We can talk about that.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And I that's on me. You know, I'm just finishing my first year, and it's taken me a while to really get all the information that I need. And our team has done a great job. They're incredible, but you know, it takes a while to know.
Well, and I do appreciate coming up with a solution to make it so that kids aren't trapped in the remediation courses, that they can move to the regular courses. So from that standpoint, I think this is awesome. But it may not be our final
Sure.
iteration.
Yep,
And,
absolutely.
And it's probably easier to think through things when we don't have school starting in a month.
Yeah,
Yeah.
good point.
And I'll just say I do appreciate the look farther upriver, you know, to say, why are we hitting 8th grade? Or what along the way hits our, you know, how many students are jumping into our system, maybe from an outside system, and they haven't received the same, you know, how does that affect things? Because my sense is that it does. You know, if you're coming from a different district, perchance, if you're coming from a different learning environment, and we've got multitudes of those in our community. So I'd be curious to see how those impact all scores. So would someone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve, I'd just like to do Math 1 concepts, Math 2 concepts, and Math 3 concepts for the upcoming 2023-2024 school year. And then I think we work on it later.
With a revisiting?
Yeah, well, I mean, is saying for the school year, not the caveat? I guess that was my intention. But then
Okay.
we could add, and then revisit the topic, or
Before July, like the last.
Yeah.
Before July of 2024?
Sure, yeah.
Prior to July 20.
Check, yeah.
Great. All right, would you read that back again for us, just to make sure we've captured it? Once you're done.
Okay. So motion by trustee Tendrick to approve the new courses of Math 1, 2, and 3 concepts for the upcoming 2023-24 school year, and check for progress prior to July 2024.
Great, thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that is our ongoing plan then for math. Thank you, everyone, for your work, and thank you to all our math teachers. We have a new course then, Guitar 2. This is our second reading. Reserved an affirmation of this course moving forward. Is there a motion or any discussion regarding Guitar 2?
I'd feel comfortable to move to approve the new course Guitar 2.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right. We'll continue learning guitar. Policy 2140, student and family privacy rights. Dr. Hawker, could you speak to this? I know we had a couple of legal questions regarding this and maybe where this is at.
You bet. Before you'll see an updated policy and the original policy as well. And after review of the comments and being able to connect with our attorney today, who had been out of town previously, we made a couple of wordsmiths on that policy. So you will see that recommended policy 2140 dealing with that says updated today, 8/14/23 is the recommended policy, and primarily that change is the requirement for if a survey were to be given to any of our students that contained any of those specific items that are listed all there, that it would require parent permission beforehand. It's not an opt-in or anything like that. We would be required to present that information as timely as possible to those families in advance. I think I'm safe to say that to my knowledge, there are never any surveys that we give out that have any of those kinds of questions ever asked. But here we go. In the event we ever would want to bring to you some sort of a survey, before we would even give it out, we would need to get parents to sign off that it's okay.
Thank you. I'm just getting caught up here on that language. Any additional questions or?
So just to clarify, Dr. Hawker, the only thing that legal changed was just that red line on number 2, because I think the other one was already there.
That is correct. There's multiple number 2s, but yes, if you're looking at
The number 2,
page
in case of such
Correct.
surveys, the students' parents.
That is correct. If you'd like me to read that, yeah, it basically just says that the student's parents may refuse to allow their children to participate in any survey requesting personal information. The school shall not penalize any student whose parents or / guardian, blah, 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 does not provide prior consent to participate in this survey. So in order to do those surveys, parents would have to have private consent. And then you can see those 7 items listed down below that talk about those privacy matters, that would ask questions about religion or politics or psychological problems, those sort of things.
Great. And as a reminder, just as an update to the community, these are required updates to a required policy. So this is
They also go with the new law, correct?
right, and
Yeah.
that's partially what makes them all part of the required part. So, any additional questions on this policy? All right, is there a motion?
I would move to approve the recommended policy, updated recommended policy 2140, student and family privacy rights. Yeah.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No. All right, thank you.
Yes.
All right, and then policy 2425, these are also required updates to the required policy, student and family privacy rates. Any questions, or Dr. Hawker, any additional comments from legal on this?
I would add one comment, just in direction to one public comment that you received, that in the policy there is reference to a procedure, and that is correct. That procedure will be forthcoming if you approve the policy.
Okay.
We'll put together the procedure and have that aligned.
Terrific, thank you. All right. Is there a motion?
I'll move to approve policy 2425, student and family privacy rights as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Terrific, that passes. Next up is policy 9802, the display of the national motto. This is a required new policy. Any additional questions or comments on this policy? There was one public comment.
I was gonna question that as well. The sole discretion of the district, is that up to the superintendent, or is that up to the board, or is that up to individual building leaders?
It would, well, here's the hope, here's the plan. As you can imagine, we have no idea currently today what we might receive as far as a signage that might have that "In God We Trust" motto on it. So our intent is to be proactive and provide that. So that way it's already in all of our schools. And once it's in the schools, then we're golden. That would create consistency amongst all of the campuses. So that's really our plan. So, but if we miss a spot, if there's something there can always be potentially, some additional, maybe there's a building we didn't think of or something. But right now the plan would be to place that in all of our schools, and we're working on, assuming the board approves this policy, we will work on creating that poster, that size, formatted the right way that the state says it needs to be, and all that good stuff, and we'll get them placed in our buildings right away anyway. So that's really our hope. Outside of that, I'm guessing, yes, when the policy specifically is addressing the sole discretion of the district, I'm guessing we would decide that. Of course, as you all know, anything that we might decide could be appealed to the board if they didn't like the decision. But our point is to support this new policy and be proactive and place a sign in our campuses ourselves.
So, in accordance with state law, just reading the first sentence, the district is prepared to receive donations of a durable poster or framed copy of the national motto. If we end up providing that, doesn't that go directly against that?
Maybe, yeah. It's a good question. Mike, what are your thoughts? Mike and I have been brainstorming all summer long in regards to how to address this. There's formatting letters as well, and it is intended to make sure that it's not and perhaps maybe that's what we do is somebody donates. If somebody wants to make those donations, we can do that so that they're consistent amongst all the schools, because what we want to make sure is that we don't have all kinds of different signages all in our various different campuses, if that makes sense. Mike, what am I missing?
Correct. And legal reminded us that the phrasing used in the statute is prepared to receive donations, not an obligation to receive or accept every donation. Our intent is to display the national motto per your policy in each of our school facilities. But we also wanted to do so in a place that is consistent and conspicuous as the law requires.
And I mean, it does say the size is approved and that type of thing. So if someone was excited and passionate about making a general donation, could they get in touch with you? Are you kind of owning this piece?
Sure.
a
Our
little
practice
bit?
will be that each of our building principals will be advised as to what this policy provides, and then accept any donations that are applicable at that point.
Great. Okay. Thanks.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
All right. So any additional questions or concerns on that policy? Is there a motion?
I would move to approve policy 9802, display of the national motto.
A second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. If anyone in the community would like to get in contact with Dr. Nelson, that would be appropriate and welcome. Thank you. We have a first reading here then of our open enrollment by students who reside within and outside of the district with the changes at the state level. This is policy 3010, and this is a required update to a policy. It'll go out for first reading following this. So any questions or comments or changes that we would like to make as a board? I know I'm anxious to see how this policy affects all the moving pieces.
I feel like this fairly closely follows the law that's informing it, so I think I could approve sending out policy 3010, open enrollment by students who reside within and outside the district as presented, and advance it to the public comment period.
A second.
Great. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, so this will go out for a first reading. And then policy 5340, evaluation of certificated personnel, a first reading on this. And I don't know if there's any questions.
Mr. Davis could speak. Was this revision as a result of kind of our what we felt like was inconsistent evaluations from building to building? Is that what? No.
What you're saying
Okay.
is what has been recommended by the state. Some change in some language, basically, and making sure that we conform to the Danielson model, which is what the state has done.
Terrific.
That answer your question?
Thanks. I'm not sure the mic was on. Okay, so this is conforming to the Danielson model, I'll recap, which is what the state mandates. And so that's, okay, got it.
All right, is there a motion then regarding this being moved to the public comment period?
I'll move to accept revised policy 5340, evaluation of certificated personnel, and advance it to the public comment period.
there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, so we'll move that out. Terrific. Moving on then, we're going to talk about Marzano High Reliability Schools Framework and everything. I don't know yet that we've been talking about our learning communities, but Dr. Hawker, would you like to start with this, unless you've got someone else?
We will tag team this,
Great.
I'm sure, but we just want to make sure we answer your questions. And I think the big key reminder for the trustees in regards to this first year expense with pursuing the high reliable schools, this is tied to our strategic plan, our 5-year strategic plan. Obviously, a component of the level 1 high reliable schools certifications is heavily invested in our collaboration approach, and that is why we also backed up this year and are hosting the Solution Tree PLC Institute here in just a few weeks at the end of the month for all of our staff. So that will give us that foundation for collaboration that is so paramount within the High Reliable Schools Foundation. And then we've identified the remainder of our federal ESSER II dollars, our learning loss dollars, to fund for this. So I think that's just the big piece that I want to remind the trustees as well. Those specific funds are targeted for fiscal year 24 and are gone after that. And so this is not a general budget expense. Am I using the right words there, Shannon? Thank you. This is using ESSER 3 learning. I think I may have said ESSER 2. Sorry about that. ESSER 3 learning loss dollars to fund this. We will. This is a 1-year piece. We, as I mentioned, also in some board questions that are answered there in your board Q&A piece. We are actively pursuing other funding, mechanisms for this. It costs basically about $7,000-ish to have each school go through the official certification process, and you can go through all 5 levels. I don't want to derail or withhold any school from possibly doing that, but my goal is to get every school at least through level 3, because level 3 will give our staff, it will give our students, and it will give our community the evidences of the work that's being done. And I think that's what will go a long ways for trust and confidence, and will tie directly with our student achievement piece. We do have some funding challenges for future years. And so, even though this is this year's request, some of those dollars won't get spent this year, so we'll be able to roll those over to next year. If a school, we've given the opportunity and the offer for all of our schools to pursue level 1 certification this year, but we're really pushing them and asking them all to be finished by the following year, because we also understand the PLC work that needs to take place this year. And so we're also trying to be mindful of the plates of our teachers and the work that's on those plates. But this will fund our first year of that program, and then my hope is through grants and through additional budget work that we will use, that we will do along with our levy funding. We're hopeful that we'll be able to continue this beyond this first cycle. So, any specific questions I can address for you in regards to this proposal from Marzano?
So I did ask quite a few questions about this, and like I said in my original question, while I really support the PLCs and the collaborative, I mean, we've spoken about that many times, I'm very concerned about the ongoing cost of this. So we have the funding for this year. Our conference is supposed to be perhaps making some money, right?
That's correct. The conference will make a little bit of money.
So will that money be used towards the following year? One of the questions I noticed that I asked is, will the $175K be the cost every year? And I don't see that was actually ever answered.
Yeah,
What are we looking at for further years' costs?
So further year, again, it's professional development opportunities if we want to. Mike, I see it creeping up. You can come on up. The costs are basically the $7,000-ish. I'm going to say $8 just to round up. That if we want to have Marzano's organization come in and do the annual certification process, that's an ongoing cost that we would have to pay for until we choose that we don't want that certification. And as I said, my recommendation is that we go through at least the first 3 years of that to get that locked up and in place. So that's an ongoing, let's just say $8,000, per campus, and we have 17 schools. So you can see what that cost is. The other costs are associated with some administrative and some staff professional development opportunities where Marzano trainers come to us. It's not us sending people all over the place, and we can negotiate that as few or as many as we want. In this initial proposal, I think you can see even in the paperwork, it might say 10 days, but we are focused on 6, I believe, Mike.
It's accurate.
6 days that we are bringing in their lead trainer to here, bringing her here. Yes, her name's Tammy, and she's planning to come here on site 6 days. And so that's the other piece of this cost. We have written a grant that we won't know if we receive until mid-year or so, probably Christmas-ish time, I'm guessing. But if we receive that grant, that could help fund a few of our schools, maybe 2 or 3, not sure exactly how many, but it could fund 2 or 3 of our schools, continuing getting that certification process. So that lowers our need to try to find funding for 17 schools down to 14, 15 schools. And we're going to just continue to piece that together each and every year as we make our budget priorities. This first 3 years will be really important. Levels 4 and 5, I'm confident, based upon my conversations with previous districts that have done the work through levels 3 and 4 and 5, that once you are level 3 certified, your system is really strong, really good, and levels 4 and 5 kind of take care of themselves. So today I would say I'm not pushing to have to bring in those certifications. We may have a building that chooses to use some building PD budget to do that for their own sake, and I today wouldn't say I would stop that, but I think my push would be to get us through level 3, and then 4 and 5 we wouldn't need to pursue. So that's kind of the ongoing cost of that. What else am I missing, Mike?
I think you've said it all, Dr. Hucker, Chair Smith, Dr. Hucker, and members of the board. Yes, this is the first year of a 3-year plan working with Marzano Research. That plan includes 2 parts. The first would be certification for each of our schools between the years 2024 and 2028, which would be the end of our strategic plan 5-year cycle. So our goal is that all of our buildings become level 1 certified by 2025, level 2 certified by 2027, level 3 certified by 2028. In doing that, each school's level certification is approximately $7,300. So if we kind of roll that out over time at the current 17 schools, it's about $130,000 per level for us to be able to achieve that goal. However, that $7,300 not only supports the building's individual progress toward meeting those goals, they also provide district supports so that what we are doing at one school isn't unique from another school, that we ultimately are trying to triangulate all of our efforts together in a professional learning community. So the first year goal that you see there, the $175,000 roughly cost, would be for all of our buildings for level 1 certification. But as Dr. Hocker had mentioned, if we have a building that says we need to focus on our collaborative work first, and we need to build off of our Professional Learning Community Institute in a couple of weeks, they can move that off to the 2024-2025 school year, and then we would not have that additional cost that year because everything's continuing to roll. So we're basically bankrolling level 1 certification over a 2-year period. We do have some buildings that absolutely will go for it this year. We will have some buildings who need to just put a little bit of extra effort in bringing their staff together to be able to do so. Dr. Tammy Heffelbauer is one of the actual creators of the program, and we are very fortunate that she has taken an interest in us and would be interested in embedding herself with her associates within our district. Just to let you know also, this is something that West Ada School District, the highest achieving school district in the state, has done for the past 3 years, and that is who we are chasing right now. We're sitting in number 2, and we're following a game plan that has worked well for them in order to make sure that we regain that top spot as well. And they know we're after them. But that is the intent, is to bring the excitement of our PLC Institute into play, give students an opportunity to be able to grow within the collaborative spirit of our staff, and also have this external certification so that anybody in our community can look at our schools and have some guaranteed and viable pieces that they know are happening, that all students are being supported in meeting their goals.
Dr. Nelson, that leads right into what my question is, as I've been taking notes here again. And I remember you and I had a conversation, you probably don't even remember it, probably midwinter last year, about kind of this work and the return on our investment in this work. And you being a data person, does this push us in the right direction for student achievement?
Our strategic plan was created in such a way that our focus is on achievement. We recognize that being the number 2 achieving high district in the state is great, but that's not what this community demands. This community demands that our students are performing at the highest. This is a pathway that will get us to that. If you think about what we've seen in the curriculum audits, for example, the last 2 curriculum audits, they called out with the fact that our students are performing well, but building to building, school to school, there's difference in outcomes. Our job is to be able to move that together. So we have a unique opportunity to host a conference whereby the message is very, very clear for all of our staff of how we work with all students to be able to meet their achievement goals. And that what, as Mrs. Spencer was talking about earlier, when we see things that are working well, we find ways to better collaborate vertically and horizontally. Vertically and horizontally to be able to meet those goals. Number 1, the professional learning communities will help to do that. Number 2, this external certification is that guarantee that it is happening to a point that meets all of those expectations. And yes, I do remember the conversation.
Additional questions?
I had asked a question about return on investment, and obviously student achievement is very important to me, and I'm sure everybody else. Marzano's been around for a long time. If people don't know that, they can look. He's been around for a long time. A lot of schools have been very successful, some schools not as successful. So when I look at spending this large of amount of money, I don't want it to be for something that's not going to move us further and providing our students with the strongest academic education possible.
And I can certainly understand where some of the references there. Unfortunately, there is no panacea in education. If there were a panacea, every school district would be following the same path. What we have followed is the work of West Ada School District. Former Superintendent Mary Ann Rannells believed very strongly in building strong professional learning communities. That's what we're following. Bonneville School District has jumped from about the 8th best performing large district to about number 3 right now. They've increased so much because of their investment in professional learning communities. I absolutely understand, and you will see when we approach you this next month for the approval of our continuous improvement plan, we want to see at least a 5% improvement this year in ISAT, IRI performance, and we're already doing well. But again, the way that we do that is providing a structure and a certification process so that everybody understands the goals and objectives. There is no doubt how we work together to be able to meet the needs of kids. Unfortunately, that requires an investment, and it's not always cheap, but this is the standard that what we have seen works in our state.
And Chair Smith, if I could just add.
Yes, please.
I have been fortunate to have been through this program a time or two. And that, I think, is a large strength. You're absolutely right. There's a ton of districts out there that have had great success with high reliable schools and great for them. And I'm sure there's some that have not been so good. My experience has said without that professional learning community foundation, the HRS is tricky. It's why initially when Marzano and Dufour were kind of doing their things, Dufour's PLC and Marzano's HRS, the glove wasn't put together, and now with the latest HRS, the glove has been put together. Schools, this drastically moves the needle if done right. And there's always that caveat, right? As Mike said, there's no panacea to education, or we'd be all doing it in the first place. We are constant professional learners. We need to invest. We have a policy 2225 or something, I can't even remember what it is, that talks about a responsibility as a district and as a board to provide professional development to our employees. This is the most economical, biggest bang opportunity that we have if we will make this commitment and do this right for the next 5 years. I'm convinced of that. It's why it's the strategic plan, and that's our focus of that. So we're all in. We're ready to get to work to do this, and I'm very confident it's going to move us from being number 2 in lots of our academic achievement areas to perhaps number 1 and overpass some of our competition, which I think would be great for us and very supported by our community as well. And that's why this work is so important. I think for us as a board, our challenge is going to be years 2 and 3. We're going to need $100,000, $150,000 each year for the next few years to do this. We've been fortunate to identify that funding for this first year. We are absolutely going to take as much of the proceeds from this PLC conference and carry those over to future expenses. We are currently writing grants to try to generate some additional funding. Maybe there'll be some additional funding come through us from the state or other avenues that we just don't know about yet. We're going to do the very best we can, but this foundational work right here will really get us started. And I'm speaking to the choir here. We all know that one of the best things that this district can do within our community for this next year is create a collaborative approach. And that's all level 1 high reliable schools focus anyway. So even if funding falls flat and we don't have a dime to do anything more, it's not work that's lost and without, because we need partnerships amongst our community and that collaboration approach within our district anyway. And that's what our schools are going to work on. Well, we've given them 2 years. So this funding, if you approve this tonight, would give us 2 years to get all those schools at least through level 1 certification, which again, it goes right to our strategic plan focus of creating more collaboration amongst our community. It really truly is a good path forward. And that's coming from a 29-year educator and moving on to my 17th year as a superintendent. That is true experience.
So with the monies that we're already spending on professional development and professional learning communities, PLCs, with this added on top of it, what is really going to be the total expense to our district with the HRS and all the other work that we're doing in the PLC work?
So the PLC was budgeted for primarily last year with because we had to commit to those. I think we may still have a little bill left to pay for that after the summit today, but you have to have all that paid so they book and get here and do all their training later. So that funding from the PLC process is essentially gone and over, and we should be generating some money back because we bought 700 seats, I believe, for this event for our own employees, and we're going to be able to sell all the extra seats, that extra 300-400 seats where we've been able to sell and get a profit from each of those seats. Not 100%, not even 50%, but a profit of each of those extra seats. And that money we have yet to identify a usage, but our hope is perhaps this: if we can even get 50 grand, 25 grand, whatever that profit comes back from hosting this PLC Institute, that will help us offset our cost in another year down the road. We'll carry that forward and help pay for the high reliable schools expense.
I guess I'm speaking outside of just the summit itself, though. What other expenses are we going to be putting in?
As far as PLC, there is none.
None.
Correct. Our plan is not to send any of our staff
Correct.
to any additional professional learning communities, professional development throughout the nation, for example. We have everything coming here, and that's our strategy to be able to build from within. We have talented staff throughout our district. They need to know clearly and strategically what we're planning to do with it. So we have a brand new strategic plan, we have a brand new mission vision, we have goal areas that are all aligned to both becoming a strong professional learning community and meeting each of the goals within these next 5 years.
Is there an expectation that when we send people for training that they come back and teach staff, teach other teachers? Because that is, honestly, I think the best way to do it is have teachers teach each other, and it saves us a lot of money too. But is there an expectation that when we send our teachers off that they will come back and then teach to maybe their staff, another school, to the district, whatever?
Correct. Chair Smith, Trustee Bierke, we do actually catalog every professional learning opportunity for our teachers. And then we also not only have that expectation that they work within their own school community, but now through a professional learning community, we will have the ability to have a wider audience for these people who are getting specified professional development. But again, our goal is not to send anybody hither and yon. Our goal is to be able to stay focused on our strategic plan. That's why it's adopted. So our expenditures around professional learning communities is the driver for any professional expenditure throughout the district. When we make decisions, we're making it because our goal is focused on our strategic plan.
Well, I think I'd like to see with this investment that we're not going to continue to send people all over the place for additional PD. If
Correct.
this is the focus and we're getting the buy-in, then this should be the thing. No, nothing else for a
And that
while.
was our commitment in bringing the strategic plan to you. We'd even love that all of our agenda items connect directly to our strategic plan. We are that serious about making this movement. The excuses are gone. This is our opportunity to make sure that Coeur d'Alene Public Schools is recognized for the work that we're doing. These structures put that in place.
So in the past, I know some of the travel has been paid for with building level professional development funds. So will that still be, I mean, will each building still receive professional development funds, or yes?
Those
Okay.
monies have been allocated to buildings for the current fiscal year. Our plan, however, is again that everything that we do still focuses around professional learning communities. And it does not mean that because somebody has received professional learning monies from our community, that gives them the right to go out and do whatever they want. Our focus is on meeting the strategic plan. So in the future, our goal is to be able to centralize those funds a little bit more around meeting the needs, just like Dr. Hawker was saying, that when we have extended expenditures around professional learning communities and high reliability schools, that those are the first funds that are there. That's what our community wants to see as well.
But for this next school year, each building does have
That is
individual
correct.
building funds?
Correct.
Okay.
Because our funding is based on ESSER learning loss funding, so it's a perfect expenditure for this year. Those funds will dry at the end of this year, and then that will be the main source for our continued work. But we are also going out and writing additional grants to make sure that this is something that we can perpetuate.
So are you saying because it's already been funded, they can still go to other PD opportunities?
We will be advising our building administration that our focus is that all professional learning that happens in buildings is focused around professional learning communities and high reliability schools. While
Here
there's
or
absolutely
far away?
we don't want to send people hither and
Okay.
yon. We want our focus to be here.
And maybe some of the money we save from sending people all over can also be used towards funding.
The brain trust that we've developed over these past several years is pretty impressive. But again, it's been centralized building to building to building. We need to branch that out a lot more to build what we can do within the capacity that we have.
Any additional questions, or where are folks at around this?
Correct me if I'm wrong, but at this point, we're approving spending money for level one. That is ESSER 3 money that we have to spend this year anyway.
Chair Smith, Trustee Tim Brink, that it would be correct. Our goal tonight is to presenting to you year one. So similar to what we had talked about earlier today with some of those course proposals, we will be providing you regular updates as to how those monies are going. We hope that you're part of our PLC Institute coming up. Many of you have already signed up for shifts at that event. Our job is to bring you into the work of our district and to see the work that we're doing paying off in student achievement.
Okay. I'm comfortable moving to approve the proposal for If there's money that needs to be spent in this school year anyway, I think this, I think, the level 1 certification gets us something positive, even if in future years the board decides not to continue. But I think, well, that's a decision to address, I think, when we get a little more information on how level 1 went, maybe. But so I would move to approve the Marzano proposal as presented.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Trustee, was it an aye? Aye. All right. So that passes, and we'll continue down that. Thank you, everyone, for lots of questions and great questions on that. So great. Thank you, Dr. Nelson. Thank you, Dr. Hawker. We need to update our public records custodian and welcome to Donna Sparron, who is not here this evening, but
Buying a house, maybe.
So hopeful.
Introduce her to you, but we'll do that.
well, we look forward to that.
Yes.
Yeah. So is there a motion? There's a motion written there.
I move to elect Donna Spearin as Public Records Custodian and Backup Clerk of the Board for the remainder of the 2023 calendar year.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Welcome, Donna. We also need to update our backup records custodian. And so there's a motion there.
I could move to elect Marianne Southwick as backup public records custodian for the remainder of the 2023 calendar year.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Congratulations, Miss Southwick. There you go. All right, then we have our 2023-2024 long-range planning committee and a list there of long-range planning committee members with a new, a new for this year chair and vice chair. And so any questions on that, or is there a motion?
I actually have some questions, probably for Jeff.
Great.
Um,
Mr. Voller?
So we had discussed in long-range planning committee that we were losing a middle school principal. We wouldn't have that, and it looks like we have not replaced a middle school principal. That just no one
Correct.
applied?
We did not have an
or-
application for that, and
Okay.
so we went with the applications that we received by the deadline, and we would probably, we talked about that. Should we hold that spot open? We decided that we had a lot of qualified applicants. We should probably fill that spot and then really work to fill that spot the following year.
Okay. Okay.
Great. Any additional questions or? All right, is there a motion then to approve?
I will move to approve the long-range planning committee members for the 2023-24 school year as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, welcome to Long Range Planning, and thank you for those folks and their service. We've got some future dates coming up then. The first thing on our list is the ISBA Annual Convention, which will be held in Boise, November 15th through 17th. And we need to let Ms. Southwick know if we're planning to attend that. All right, so we'll look at our November calendars. We've got on August 28th, then we've got a board retreat coming up, and notice that the site for that has, location of that has changed, and that's a board retreat for us to discuss board, and what? Maybe a little more than stuff. Board self-evaluation. Thank you. That was the word I was looking for. Just our self-evaluation, and begin just to talk about our own goals for the board as well on this year. So look forward to that. And then September 11th is our next regular board meeting right here, right after the start of school. So we look forward to that. All right. With that, is there a motion? We're going to move to, at the end, do a motion to adjourn. So is there a motion to adjourn the meeting? I know we've never, no, but we're But I think, didn't we, I think we talked about that, maybe?
It's been on the agenda.
Yeah. So
is
now I'm
this it?
just following the agenda that we moved
I'll
to.
make a motion to adjourn this meeting. Thank you all for coming.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. Meeting adjourned. Thanks. And thank you all for coming.